Welcome to the Hyper Guy Motivational Podcast. I'm so lucky today to have this amazing woman on today, Arielle Fernandez. Arielle Fernandez is self-employed. She works for Bullish Vision. She teaches technical analysis skills in the trading and financial markets. She has her Bachelor's of Science from the University of Pittsburgh in exercise science, and she's got a master's degree from USC, that amazing school, in health administration. And the other part of this is that she is an absolutely amazing athlete. And she's played soccer for over 20 years, and she played on the national team, the Caribbean national team. And we'll get into that too. Thank you so much for being here today, Arielle.
Of course. Thank you so much, Martine, for having me. I mean, I've heard so much about your podcast, and I was actually really honored to have the invitation to be here. So,
I know it's been so long. I've known you for a couple of years now, and I'm like, every time I turn around, you're doing amazing things. And you left us for a short while, and then you're back in LA. So I'm happy you're back in
I
California.
did, and we'll get to that, and why. And I'm a Cali girl at heart, so born and raised. I don't plan on moving anytime soon. I did try, and that just didn't work out. So, I'll be around the area. So we got to catch up more for sure.
So I'm going to start out by asking you where you were born and raised.
Yeah. Well, I kind of gave that away, right? I was born in LA, raised in Long Beach, about 30 minutes away. So complete SoCal girl. I grew up single. Don't have any siblings. Well, I do have a half sister, but I didn't grow up with her. She is 13 and she lives on the East Coast. So really, it was just kind of growing up with me, my mom and my dad. Unfortunately, they had a divorce when I was 5 or 6 years old. So growing up as a single child was very, it was, I began to be very comfortable with myself. And I think that's kind of morphed into the being that I am today, in a good way. But yeah, so I think I answered your question.
So let me ask you, what was your relationship like with your mom and dad growing up, and how did they influence you, or didn't, or can you just kind of give me the dynamics?
Yeah, for sure. So I always say that I grew up I was a daddy's girl, and I still am. I feel like an equal love, I guess you would say, coming from both sides of the spectrum. I mean, I wasn't one or the other. I noticed that, when I'm older and I look back, my dad tended to be kind of the nurturer. I don't want to say the mother, but if I talk back to my mom, which were a couple of times, that he was always the one that I would run to for protection. My mom, she was more of a cutthroat, straightforward. All I had to see was the look that she would give me, and I would know to just stop what I'm doing and make sure that I behave. So a very, I guess, just a whole overall loving family, but I unfortunately never had the traditional American dream family where, it's the three of us and we go out to dinner all the time. It was either one or the other. So it's kind of like a 1 week on, 1 week off for a good 5 or 6 years of my life. And then I had, I think, middle school. My dad went away for 2 years for work, and I was flying back and forth out of state to Washington to see him, but we still maintained our relationship. And even to this day, playing soccer growing up, they were by my side all the time, and I'm very thankful for both of them. My dad, I can't even remember how many times they were able to drive me anywhere or fly with me, because I was traveling all the time since I was age 11. Just nationally, not international until the age of 17, but definitely state by state playing soccer. So I am very thankful for what they've shared with me and just the relationships that we've developed over the time. So they're literally my best friends. So
So what kind of stuff did you like growing up? I mean, when you think about your childhood, like, what do you think really helped develop you? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but like, what made you? You're such a strong and very powerful, strong, intelligent woman. I mean, what gave you this confidence? Have you always been this way, or no?
it's funny how you ask. No, I haven't been this way naturally, but I think a lot of the extracurricular activities my family have put me through, for instance, soccer. I was a musician. I played clarinet, saxophone, bass clarinet for about 5 or 6 years total, 6 or 7 years. And being able to travel internationally using soccer or using music as an avenue. And so I think, by the age of 18, I had been to like 15 different countries. By the age of 21, 22, I hit like 25 countries. So that, I feel like I would try to give anybody the advice that, even if they don't like traveling opened me up to not only seeing and being exposed to other cultures, but and to kind of gain multiple perspectives on not just your own, which can help in anything. It can help on your day to day, your interaction with other people. It can help with your relationships, your family, or your significant other, and just being able to handle yourself in different situations professionally and in a casual atmosphere. Just getting the traveling aspect, I would say I am most grateful for. That's probably what helped with that.
And what were your grades like growing up? Were you a pretty good student?
Yes, I was a perfectionist, I would say. Like, I was one where I was a complete nerd. I'm gonna put that out there. All I really had growing up was my grades in school, soccer, and music. And I would be the one to stay up at 1 or 2 a.m. until the job got done, and just do it all over again the next day. And it's not even that I needed the structure from my parents. That just was me. Like, I'm a very structured person. So, if you tell me, this is due at this date, like, I have a checklist. I live and breathe off of a checklist, and that just is who I am. So, yeah, my grades are pretty good. I mean, like 4.0, sometimes 3.8, but like,
Yes, I know you're OCD because I think
yeah.
I've done 41 podcasts, and I think you're the one of the only ones that sent me a detailed outline,
Oh my
and I
gosh,
was
you're
like,
gonna put me
okay,
on
I've
blast like that.
I was like, I've never had such a detailed outline for this, but I'm not going to go totally by this outline, but okay.
No, totally fine. It was not meant for you, for us to go through the outline. I just,
No, I totally get it. And so let me ask you, when you were overseas, like, um, can you tell me what countries you've been to? And when you were abroad, was there any countries that where you were like, oh, this is kind of scary, or you know what,
um,
maybe I shouldn't have came, or did you have any
well,
precarious situations when you were abroad?
not scary. I saw my first like dead body in the middle of the road in the Dominican Republic, and like literally, like we were trying to get to our game, and we had a police escort, and we were like plowing through traffic, and the traffic was there because there was like literally somebody just had gotten run over, and the police weren't even there, and all the people were doing, they were just literally just going around them like nothing, like it wasn't anything. So that kind of like freaked me out, and I was like, oh. And but I think that was the most crazy thing that has ever happened. I mean, Peru, um, I would say that actually wasn't for soccer. That was for a mission trip on the healthcare level. In college, I had gone for a couple weeks, and at the time, I was a little bit more fluent with Spanish, and so I actually can like have a whole entire conversation. I don't use it anymore, so it's kind of like a, you don't use it, you lose it. But we were able to help other physicians set up mobile clinics around the impoverished communities in the areas, and we were, navigating and helping the locals, communicate, go to which tent, dentistry, general, OBGYN, and so forth, and just kind of shadowing, but also helping them with that. So, but seeing the impoverished communities and the fact that there were communities literally in the slums, like they would live in shacks. And the last like few days, we actually spent some time building a concrete, pouring concrete, and building a stairway, so that they can get at least from their houses all the way down the mountain to the local, town area, because all there was dirt in the mountain. Um, and sad to say, I think I had broken my wrist right before that, so I was pouring concrete with a broken wrist. That was fun.
Oh my goodness. So,
But,
so you started playing soccer when you were 11. Did you have any heroes at 11 years old? And what made you continue to stay with soccer? And then you ended up playing in college, correct?
yes, I did. I did.
So can you
Um,
give me a little bit about this journey, the soccer journey?
Yeah. So for the soccer journey, it really it was a blessing. Really, I'm very athletic as is, but I think because soccer ended up being the first sport that I was kind of thrown into at the age of 5, and I kind of just stuck with it. I was good at it. And so, I'm one where when I commit to something, like I love to like finish and see it through the end. So it's not like I was good at it and I was like, okay, I quit and I'm going to move on to another sport. No, I was like thriving. I was seeing myself do well. And I just like the sense of commitment. So really, when I stuck with that, it led through, middle school. That's when I started the travel team. And then when I got to high school, it's interesting when you get into women's soccer. I'm not sure if but compared to like football or compared to basketball, most of the recruiting when it comes to for college, it comes through the high schools. But for soccer, it's really not the case. You usually most of the college coaches, they come to like your travel games. You're on your travel team. So for high school, it really didn't matter. So I played 2 years of varsity my freshman year, my sophomore year in high school, and then it became too much doing both. And so I quit high school and I kept doing the travel ball. And I think by age 12, I had won the national title with my team in Hawaii. That was fun. And then, when I was 14, um, we got second. We were supposed to go to Sweden and we lost. It was really sad. But 16 U16 and U17, we were able to hold two other national titles. So it was nice to I take it for granted. And actually, it's funny. I had a conversation with somebody about a week ago, and she's also another athlete, and we were just like, wow, like, growing up, and we were privileged in the sense of we came from really good, teams out of SoCal area, and we're so used to winning and so used to doing well that there are a lot of athletes out there that don't even get a chance to even compete at that level. So just being able to reflect and be grateful and thankful of those experiences is great. So, and fast forward, got to college at Pittsburgh, played my 4 years over there. And by year 2, though, that's when I was introduced and invited onto the national team for FIFA and CONCACAF in the Caribbean to play for St. Kitts and Nevis national team. And so I was going back and forth on the off season for college, of course, and playing for the World Cup qualifiers, the Olympic qualifiers. So luckily, I didn't have to report, maybe once every couple of years. But luckily, I was staying in shape and training with the college team. So by the time when they needed me and they, requested me to come, I would be, ready. And so, yeah,
how did you get? Well, I'm gonna bring you back a little bit. But real quick question on this one.
yeah,
How
yeah.
how did you get recruited to the national team? Did you have to apply, or they heard about you, or like how did that work?
Yeah, so good question. So actually, I have a friend. His name is Atiba Harris, and he is a professional soccer player. Actually, I think he just retired like last year, started a family. But at the time, when I was like 14, 15 years old, that's when I had met him. He played for Chivas USA before they went back to Mexico. I'm not sure if they're still in the States, but they were right here at the StubHub in Carson. And so I would see him play, and I would be the little ball girl, and I would just be so happy just to be able to go run and get the ball for these professional athletes. And that's how I met Atiba, and through my uncle, who I got me the hookup to go to these games and be the ball girl. And he was Catition. He's from St. Kitts and Nevis, and I had got of age right when I got to college. The island itself literally has like a population of 60,000 people. It's really small, very quaint. And so there's not many people from St. Kitts or Nevis to even go. So he reached out to my dad, and he was like, hey, like, you need to start coming, like, flying down and playing. They need you, like, the structure and the maturity on the team at the time, it wasn't there. And, half the team lives on the island. They don't have the resources, the money, half their fields are dirt. It's a third world country. So, when they can find people from the States, which I think they found ended up like 3 Canadians, 4 from the US, one from Sweden. And we have that structure and we have that, I guess, just that talent, I guess, from being in such a highly competitive league. And you bring that to the islands, then they trust that you can give something that they don't have. So there was no tryout. They saw film on me. I mean, they watched me play in college. So, I mean, that's all what they really needed. When I got there, of course, I ended up leading and not because I went in there just being a, uh, dictator, but just because of my experience. So I stuck with it. And once I started, I knew I couldn't stop. It's like I knew
So
they.
so let me ask you this: in high school, were you a star soccer player in high school?
Yes,
And soccer traditionally hasn't been it's not the most multiracial. It's not so integrated, I guess.
that
Especially,
yes, that is
that's a nice way, I guess, for me to put that. Especially when you go to when you play in the Midwest, I would say probably on the coast, you're probably going to have it's going to be more multi-ethnic. What was that like for you? And going to University of Pittsburgh, and were you just recruited by them, and was it a full scholarship?
okay. So first part of your question, um, I grew up in a very mostly predominantly white community. And that became my norm. And that was what I was used to. So on most of my soccer teams, yes, I typically was the only black on the team. I think when I got to 15 years old, 16 years old, that team, we got one other African American person. And as far as Latinos, there were only two, and that was when I was older at age 16 and 17 as well. But growing up all as a kid, all the way up to that point, it was predominantly white. So, but I was okay with that. It didn't really make me uncomfortable. It really, it, I look back at it and yeah, I mean, some refs kind of picked on me a little bit more. I don't know if that was because specifically only race. That was maybe also because as a kid, I was very strong. I was very, I was a little chubby, but I was like the fastest. I was Miss Deceiving. I was really fast as a sprinter, but like I was a truck. Like I could just like literally run you over. It's bad to say, but so a lot of fouls would be called on me. So it was like, oh yeah, that's racist. Some people would like shout that out. I'm like, no, it's not. Like I get it, but the pressure or the scope was always on me a little bit more. And I even want to go a little bit into in college. Actually, I won't say his name just because I don't want to put that out there. But my head coach at University of Pittsburgh at the time, my first year there, it was his first year as a head coach, and so our team was kind of his guinea pig, and they were taking a chance on him, and he was a terrible coach. And by year 5, I wasn't playing, but I was still there on campus and supporting the team. And they finally fired him, let him go. And there was a huge board meeting. My uncle, he's like a higher up on the board of like, soccer and everything. And said that he was there and he said that he was accused of being racist and not being fair to, people of color, whether they're Latino, whether black. And it definitely showed while I was there. I actually had got benched for a whole year after starting for a whole year, after I chose to serve on the national team. So that kind of was my payback for. But then we had 3 other Canadian national players that they went to go play for their country, and they came back and they still held their position. So that's kind of questionable. I don't want to like deem him evil or
Is
call him.
it so? Was it a full ride, Ariel,
It was
or
it
was
was
it like a
partial.
partial? Okay, I was gonna say because I know a lot of soccer's scholarships are not. They have very few full rides. Usually they're partials.
Yeah.
But the question, I guess, the other part of the question was, did other what made you choose University of Pittsburgh? Did you have other choices as well?
I did until I blew out my knee during recruitment season. And I was looking at UCLA, I was looking at USC. And at the time, I didn't think that I was going to go away. I wanted to stay close. So I was only looking at really Pac 12 teams. And then I had recovered right to the point where I was still on time, but I was like towards the last ladder of that year's recruitment season, and I had gotten like three offers. It was University of Pittsburgh, this small private school in Texas, Lamar University, and then University of Washington. Um, Pittsburgh was kind of the middleman of things because I wanted a big school. I wanted the football team, whole camaraderie type deal. Lamar was a little bit too small for me. And University of Washington, they're like, well, you're kind of a late recruit. You can walk on the first year, but we'll give you a scholarship the second year. So that's not always absolute. Sometimes, unfortunately, athletes get taken advantage of and just, they tell you something to get you in, and then they promise you something and then they don't give it to you. So I chose Pittsburgh, which was great. I mean, it was a great academically, it was a great school, and I had a great experience. I had no regrets whatsoever.
And I wanted to ask you that. How did you balance? And I know you've probably pondered this. How did you balance when you were playing and you had a difficult major? Exercise science. I don't know if a lot of people know it. It's a lot of science, a lot of memorization. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty difficult major. How did you balance like playing a full-time athlete?
Yeah.
And then balance the school and then balance playing for the national team as well. I mean, you had a lot of stuff going on there, and then
Yeah.
also work and during that time period, working on the rehab, because your injury. How
Right.
did you balance all that? And was there ever a point where you're like, I don't know if I can do this, or this is becoming too much for me? And then you were also balancing a relationship as well. So
Right.
how did you process all this?
Oh, bit by bit. So I don't think I ever reached the burnout type phase. In college, I did reach it once in high school, so before my recruitment there. And I remember having a whole argument and saying, I don't know, with my parents, I'm like, I'm gonna quit, da, da, da. But that was because of the pressure of the recruiting, and that was during the time of blowing out my knee and kind of losing the support from even my coach at the time. And so like I said, I'm a very driven person. I will have my hard times, but I do everything with a purpose, and usually it's from internally. It's like, I've never have been told, to do something and then I do it just because you say it. No, it's like I do it because I know that morally, or it's right, or I just want to commit to it. So I got back on track when I got to college. That's when I experienced my first relationship. Actually, second semester of freshman year. So that was completely new to me, completely new territory. But I think it helped the fact that both him and we were student athletes. So when you're a student athlete in college, like, yes, it is a job, but they structure it so strictly in a way where, it does morph into your typical, your normal, life, as far as, okay, got to get up at 5, have lift at 6 o'clock, practice from 7 to 9, first class at 9:30, a second class at 1 o'clock after you get lunch, maybe a night class 6 to 9, and then you might have 2 long days, 2 days a week, and the other two days are like maybe half of that. But with exercise science, I actually started out as a bio major. So the bio major was actually a little bit too much. The fact of it's sad because I remember being told, they're like, well, if you're a bio major, or if you're in nursing, or if you're an engineer, you better think twice of doing that major, just because you're a student athlete, and not because they thought that we couldn't do it as a student athlete, but literally because that was how demanding the schedule was. And for off season, sometimes with practice schedule and classes, it would clash. So then we did have some engineers, or we either dropped the team or they changed their major. And that goes along with pre-med and nursing students, which at the time I was exercise science, I was pre-med, even when I was pursuing bio. So I made that change to exercise science because it still gave me the health perspective of what I wanted. But as far as scheduling, it made it a little bit easier for me to handle. It was only day classes in the middle of the day. And then we had like morning or night classes. So it the structure, I felt like helped us because we had little room to veer left, or we had dry season. We couldn't drink during 8 months out of the year, so that wasn't an issue, and I wasn't a big drinker anyways. Um, Even though I know, yeah, I should say that here since college. I guess you're under 21 and undergrad, and then we're all drink what. Anyways, um, but and then for the relationship part, he was a student athlete as well. He was football, so that's of course very demanding as a D1 athlete as well. And so we were able to use at least the responsibilities of sports in order to not get too intertwined together. We would have our own space, but then there would come to a time where then it'd be full blown, like, okay, we're both have off season at the same time, we're living together, too close for comfort, arguing sometimes. But I mean, for the most part, the relationship was actually okay for the year and a half, 2 years of the duration. um, where the mishap happened, which is later down the line when we weren't even a thing, that kind of changed my life. That was when we were just friends. So that kind of hit me left field. But we don't have to get into that quite yet if you don't want to. I know you want to stay on
And
this.
no, but I mean, no, we can if you want. I mean, it's I know that changed your life, and um, I guess was that after you had graduated from
Yeah,
college?
yeah. It was a year after. So I took a fifth year because I was still pursuing a pre med. I was studying for the MCAT and such. So I wasn't playing soccer my fifth year. The sixth year, I ended up staying in Pittsburgh and I was working, and I was taking like that gap year,
Mm-hmm.
either going to apply for medical school, or I was applying to the health administration masters and MBAs at the same time as well. And so this is when you have to value mental health. You have to um, take yourself out of a situation and your personal emotional, being when it comes to understanding the full picture. And fortunately, I was able to get out of that, and understand it afterwards, even though I had a lot of emotion during the time. So, long story short, uh, my ex at the time, which we were actually really good friends, I was still good friends with him, his girlfriend, his family. He had went away for a year, finished his degree elsewhere, actually, because he had been caught doing some illegal substance use for football. And he came back, kind of a little bit toxic conversations, trying to kind of keep myself distanced, but still be somewhat of a supportive being around. So, but there's only so much that someone can take when you're allowing that negativity, that you know conversation, even though you want to put the other person first and you want to help them, you want to be there for them. You have to take a step back sometimes and look, what's best for you and your aura. And so, long story short, he actually mentally snapped, and he came over to my house, and he stole from me, and he beat me up, strangled me, and to the point where ambulance came, police came later. My face really wasn't that recognizable. I'd lost a lot of blood everywhere, but I was okay. I didn't go to the hospital because I think I was too in shock. I can laugh about it now. I'm okay, but I was too in shock. The adrenaline was going. So I just wanted to be the tough guy, and ended up walking myself into the ER the next day because I barely could walk the next day. All the pain hits you afterwards. So
I think
after,
I think also Ariel, for me knowing you, you're just a really kind person, and I think you always give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and I think that you want to be supportive, and I think a lot of times we think that we're being supportive of somebody if we don't necessarily take a second step of action. But I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say that you're just a wonderful person. I think that um, you know
thank
I know you went through a lot with that, and so you ended up taking your. So, and how long did it take for you to recover
something like that.
mentally and physically? And then at the same time, you're in school. I mean, did you have to stop school? I mean,
Yeah, so like I said, that was during my gap year. So thank gosh, I wasn't. I was just working. I wasn't in school. And actually, that was the same month that I was actually supposed to hear back from the schools that I had applied to, the health administration masters and MBA. And I only applied to Pitt, where I was at. I applied to University of Washington, and I applied at home at USC in California. And it it I didn't have to like change everything right then and there. I did go to physical therapy, which I should have went to the chiropractor a little bit more. I had like a broken rib, and a couple bruises everywhere, but I actually didn't correct that later, so my body ended up like fixing itself in the wrong positioning. So then I had to like see a chiropractor for a whole year later after, on the physical standpoint. But I feel like the mental standpoint was the biggest. Starting with on the my parents had come, of course, to support me through all of this. They stayed with me for 2 or 3 weeks, especially when there was a warrant out for his arrest, and when he wasn't arrested. That was the most kind of fearful time, because he was just kind of out on the loose. My roommate and I had to kind of get the hell out of Dodge and get a hotel for 4 or 5 days and not tell anyone. She was still in school, so I really felt bad for her, but she was okay. Like, she was able to get to class and her or call out of class because of a emergency. And so my parents came. They ended up basically saying, I know you're supposed to find out where you're going to school in a couple of weeks, or whatever, and I know that Pittsburgh's a really good option, but you're not staying here. We're packing up your entire apartment and we're moving you all the way across the country back to California. And I was so devastated. Like I was mad. I was all the above. I was angry. The fact that they were literally like uprooting the life that I had put so much work into setting myself up, as far as networking, all my internships there. I had a good, healthcare job there that I was going to lead into my first, full-time corporate job. And then at the same time, I was applying to the dual master's program at Pitt, the MBA attached with the MHA, Health Administration. And the road trip back, the first day we got on the road, my dad and I, we literally crossed the border into the next state. And then Pittsburgh calls me and says, hey, congratulations, you got in, and we'd like to give you a full ride for an MBA and a half of a scholarship for the MHA part. And I had to say no. And I remember just bursting into tears. And my dad's like, well, and he was trying to think the best for me, of course, my safety, but he was like, I can turn back around right now if you really want this. But I knew that he didn't want me to do that. And frankly, like I said, there's one situation where I literally had to take myself out of my shoes and look at it and be like, well, this isn't safe for me. It's not fair to my family. And I have another chance if I pick something else. Hopefully I get into USC. Hopefully I get into, University of Washington. So it took us a week to drive back. The second day I got back, I got into USC. And the third day back, I got into University of Washington. So I was very blessed that I had those options when I got back.
What do you think that experience, I mean, how did that interrupt your soccer life, for one?
Yeah.
And then the second part of that is, what did you learn from that experience? And are you still kind of dealing with those emotions from then? And how kind of have you worked through these emotions and feelings?
Yeah. So for soccer, how it affected it, it really didn't, considering I was done playing for the college team. So as far as being, playing 12 months out of the year, I didn't have to do that. I was only training maybe 2 or 3 months only for the national team. So it happened to be not during that time where I needed to report and go play. It did interrupt a couple of court dates when I ended up dimmying down, 2 felonies that he had committed against me to misdemeanors because I was playing in the Olympic trials overseas and I couldn't make it to court. But besides that, physically speaking, that's the only, thing that it had affected me. Now on the mental side though, I did do a year of like traditional go to psych, sessions, sit down with the psychologist. And at first I didn't believe in it, me trying to have my shield, have my, tough guy, cloak on or whatnot. And I really think that the most that I've learned from it though was through my own, like, not even in the sessions, it was like me. I mean, yeah, he was able to get me to start thinking and my wheels spinning on what I do need to self-reflect on and what I do need to work on. And uh, it took me about 2.5, 3 years. I mean, it's hitting almost 3.5 years now. So completely like okay with it, mentally speaking, and being able to talk about this like I am right now and not breaking down completely. Um, it took me about 3 years. And what I learned from it though, the most is that first off, just as far as relationships and just people, um, I tend to be a giver, and that's with everything that I do. And it's genuine. If I get something out of it, it's definitely not expected. I'm appreciative, but I just do it because I know that it needs to be done and it betters the other individual that I'm doing it for. But I've had to balance that and draw a line and not be, completely either taken advantage of. That goes on the professional side too. Like it's like I know my worth and I know what I can do. And so, I'll do it for you, but I have to put limits on it because I can't wear myself out, or I can't, um, be unfair to myself. And that also even ties into future relationships that I hope to gain as far as friends, family, significant others. It's been, I mean, not getting too personal about it, but ever since then, I really haven't dated until now, and that was a whole phobia that I had to get. I had to get a phobia of black male, of being in a negatory, way. I had to kind of fix that. I had a negative response to guns because a gun was involved in the situation. So any image of a gun, any action movies, and I love action movies, but any like gun sounds, that was a trigger. I would just start crying in the middle of what, or getting anxiety or whatever. Um, all of that took 3 years of total to be okay with that and be able to, I guess, balance it. And it's been tough, but like I'm proud to say that I think I've reached the threshold of being able to open up, to some, individuals, or show my true self, not be too guarded, and just kind of have a good balance. That's all I would say. That's the biggest thing. You can't, you give your all on everything, but just look after yourself, because you got to put yourself first. And that's what I wasn't doing until now.
And what kind of advice would you give other people, whether it's males or females that are victims of domestic violence? If you were to look back in time and give yourself advice, what would that be?
Um, I, first, if it's during the situation of where you are enduring this terrible behavior from somebody, at least have one person in your corner that you can open up and talk to. Because typically speak sometimes, you feel like, oh, either you're embarrassed or you shouldn't say anything, and then no one knows. And when things do go left, no one knows why or how to help you, because you know just no one knows. So always have a person, I would say, and dealing with it afterwards. I'm not saying, I'm not recommending like the traditional way of the, going to a psychologist. Sometimes people cope or heal in different ways. But I would say find your way in order to find a peace within. So if that's meditating, I ride motorcycles. So like I would just take a cruise, down the beach by myself and just kind of self-reflect and not blame yourself. That's the biggest thing. Don't automatically, oh, I should have did this, I should have did that. It's not really only of what you didn't do, because it takes two to dance. I'm sure you weren't the only, playing peace in the situation, but just taking the time to being able to build that skill of not blaming something or someone, taking yourself out of the situation and just seeing it for what it is and moving on. Forgive and move on. don't hold on to grudges because it literally can eat you alive, and you won't get anywhere.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. One of the things I was thinking about when you were relating this story was, I think growing up, a lot of us feel like domestic violence is an issue that maybe just a certain classes of people have to deal with.
yeah,
But when you talk to people, you realize that people are victims of domestic violence from all social classes.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so
It does not matter, rich, poor, whatever race. It literally can happen at the snap of the fingers, and it literally did. I mean, this man. I mean, yeah, he was of African American, race, but I mean, well-to-do family, and he lived in the estates in Pittsburgh. Like he had everything that he wanted. Like, it's literally like, come to find out, he actually had a mental health disorder. He was had anxiety and depression. He wasn't taking his meds, and no one knew. So it's like, paying attention to those signs, and me being a healthcare provider, especially with, in that field at least, um, I care, and I think this is my theory, because I have a passion in that. I was a little bit. It was easier for me to kind of see the whole thing for what it is. I'm like, okay, well, he needs help. I'm so sad that I had to be the punching bag in this situation, but I can totally understand, the situation on why it happened. No, no one should ever get beaten up like that. But what I'm saying is just,
no, I
you got to
totally,
detach yourself.
yeah,
You
yeah.
detach the
And,
personal
so- and
aspects.
and sometimes it's hard to do that. I think about one of the professions that has the leading cause. One of the professions that has a high suicide rate is the medical profession, doctors specifically.
Yeah,
And you would think they're the people that are they're the healers. And I recall seeing a story not even that long ago. He's one of the number one specialists in a particular field, a heart specialist, and he took his life not that long ago. But nobody knew he had this issue going on, and but a lot of times we think that we're, like you said, impervious to it because of our education or our status, and we don't realize, we're missing signs as well,
hmm
and not taking care of ourselves as well. So let me ask you this: what made you go on? So you went on to USC,
went to,
right,
yeah,
and you got your master's in health administration.
yes.
What was that like for you? And was it a good experience for you? And I know that you, like you said, you went to Dominican Republic as part of that process. What was that like for you? And then you can kind of talk about your journey after you finish school, and we can
Yeah.
start talking about what you're doing now, because you're doing amazing things now as well.
Yeah, it's a fun world out there in those markets. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so I ended up at USC, under terrible circumstances, but I made it all for what it was. But it was a great experience. I had to move, and I chose that because of my situation. But when I got home, I had the family support, the school itself. I mean, it's such a good networking atmosphere. I met a lot of connections that I could just reach out to now and be like, hey, can you help me with this? And this is a year or so later, where we're still out and doing our own lives, but you do build a camaraderie there. Unfortunately, I think it was 8 months into the my master's program, COVID hit. So that kind of definitely put a damper on things, especially the fact of the second year of my degree requires a residency at a hospital with healthcare administration executives. And so luckily, my residency was in person. 85% of our residencies were taken away or stalled. So that definitely, taking the in-person, experience out of it, I wish, I could get that back. But, I made the best of it. My first day of my residency actually so happened to be the first day of COVID as a public, pandemic. So that was fun. Definitely hit the ground running with that and learned a lot from it. Um, and so afterwards, I graduated in 21, and I took a job in St. Louis, and that was fun. I say that sarcastically because it was a great job, great responsibility. I was a practice optimization manager. So my responsibility were to oversee about 30 to 40 outpatient clinics and be able to not only educate, but identify the opportunities or issues physicians and nurse practitioners were having with their practice, and basically kind of acting as a long-term internal consultant of just pointing out what can be improved, how to do it. This is how you do it, X, Y, and Z, whether that's improve your workflow, whether that's get your quality metrics up, if you're lacking on getting your Medicare patients, value-based Medicare patients in for your annual wellness visits, lower your 30-day readmission rate for your hospitals to increase your metrics. Then overall, what physicians love to hear is that increases their reimbursements at the end of the year due to higher quality marks. So my job was to make sure they get their quality marks up so that everybody's happy, better patient care, and more money in the physician and nurse practitioners' pockets. So I had to have a lot of meetings with the physicians and nurse practitioners. So that was my job. So in St. Louis, and so I lasted there 7 months. It was great, and however, at the same time, my hobby is trading in the financial markets, and I've been doing that for about 5, almost 6 years now. And I was part of a trading community to the point where my mentor actually, I was getting a lot of inquiries from the other students asking for me to teach them, or hey. And so I was doing maybe for a month, and I ended up spending like 15, 20 hours a week doing one-on-ones with other students that I was with and not getting paid, just giving my time once again. And my mentor calls me before we have this conference he was putting in Atlanta, and he said, he's like, hey, so I know you're coming, but how do you feel about teaching with me? So I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I didn't know that I was that good or that I had that much to offer, but yeah, I'll give it a whirl. And went, had a great time. Did a little presentation, and from then on, like, I had a lot of inquiries before, but students just started reaching out left and right. And it was at the same month that actually, yes, mentally speaking, I was kind of getting kind of homesick. I was actually, some of my coworkers pulled me to the side. They're like, "Are you okay? Like, you seem a little depressed." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I don't know anybody here. My family's at home." At the same time, my grandmother and my uncle, they were going in and out of the hospital, so that wasn't normal, and that was going on for the past 3 or 4 months. And when I had gone back in December for Christmas, my grandmother actually, while I was there, was taken to the hospital, and my uncle had a stroke. And so I'm like, I grew up as only child, so, and I don't have no cousins, so family means a lot to me. So I didn't even question it. It was the first time I think that I've ever decided something without a regret, hesitation, second thought. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to fly back and put my 2-week notice in. Then I'm going to, fly to Atlanta and then come back, pack my bags, and then come back. And that's what I did. And it kind of was a leap of faith type of deal, because I got back, and that's when I opened up my LLC, Bullish Visions LLC, and started accommodating students on teaching them technical analysis on how to read candlestick charts, so that no one's guessing in the markets, because the markets have a mind of its own, and also incorporating fundamentals as well. And so I started with individual students, and then grew to small groups at a time. And so, yeah, so that's kind of actually now that kind of leads to what I'm doing now. So that is what I'm doing now. That started the beginning of this year, January, February, and I'm doing what I love to do, and it's fun. It's scary sometimes, because you're not employed. You're not depending on somebody else's check, but at the same time, you're free of your own time. You can kind of do whatever. You can have your own schedule. I can say, I want 5 students this month, but maybe 10 students next month. So it definitely, and even though it's a freer way of living, it's way more responsibility and discipline, I feel like. I mean, you walk into a job, you know what you're supposed to do, you do it, you leave, you get paid, great. You rinse and repeat. But for me, I always have to be innovative now. I mean, that's something I'm getting used to. I have to, be creative on things, marketing. I have to, try to build my own path, and I don't have a boundaries. So, me being structured, sometimes that's like kind of freaks me out, but I'm getting better at that. So I'm having fun. Um, Now, yes, I know that
So
markets are not good, but it's okay. You can still make a profit, short the market, and you'll be fine.
So, what makes you? You're so confident, and you're totally switching fields, which I think is amazing. So
Yeah.
you're moving from what you want to do, that health, the health side of it, and you're starting your own business.
Hmm.
Um, do you? What makes you so driven in terms of taking that leap of faith? And you're very successful at everything you've done in your life. What do you think you have, or that someone can develop to take that leap of faith?
Sometimes with a leap of faith, it's not even something that you can prepare for. It's literally a conscious, impulsive decision. There might be a little bit of calculation before, but the initial part is just to jump. I say just jump. If you want to do something, just do it. Once you land, then you'll figure out how to go from there, right? It's like, you jump into a pool, you don't know what you're doing. Okay, you figure out how you're going to tread water and how you're going to survive. And when you put yourself into those, I don't want to say life-threatening situations, but severe or you know very crucial situations, a sense of you starts to figure out how to get shit done, as I would say. Excuse my language, but you need. I feel like, for at least for me, you need that extra pressure on you in order to finally figure out what your fullest potential and your capabilities are. And that's kind of what I did. And like I said, I didn't know that I was capable of doing everything of what I'm doing right now, and nor did I even have a game plan of doing it. And I just had to first make the initial jump, and then figure it out from then. And but my safety net, granted, is yes, my master's degree. So you see some entrepreneurs where they might try this and they don't have a safety net. They might not have an education to back them up, and then their business fails, and then they're in a cyclic cycle of trying to get it off the ground, and it doesn't happen, and then they're not successful. But for me, like, I always make sure that I have a backup plan. I always make sure I have plan A, B, C, and my out. So that's kind of how I took it. My education, my 2 degrees, are my plan A and B. Plan C is building a business. My safety net, or like if things go south, then I could just circle right back to using my degrees. So, which I'm totally fine with. But yeah, and then what was your second question? Totally.
Well, no, I think you answered it, which is, basically, how did you get the strength to make this, to make a jump like that? And
Yeah.
I think you answered that. And um, this is my fun part of my podcast. I enjoy all of it, but this is the funny, I get a lot of levity, and it's a lot of fun to do this. So I get to ask you a couple questions here.
All good.
Um,
Okay.
what's your guilty pleasure food wise?
Ooh, guilty pleasure ice cream, for sure. I'm a sucker for ice cream.
What
Um,
kind? Any particular kind?
my favorite is, uh, besides the generic vanilla. I won't be that basic, but butter pecan is my favorite. Um, Mint and chip is also a favorite too.
Okay. Favorite country you visited,
Ooh,
or country you want to go to?
um, that I visited Switzerland. It was beautiful. I was kind of in like the countryside, but we did stop at Zurich, their capital, um, and it was in the middle of the summer. But when we went to Zurich, and the mountaintop, there still was like snow the top of the mountains. It was beautiful, and then you had the castles, and then you had like the just the whole greenery of it, and some villages that kind of took you back in time, that you felt like you were in the 1800s. It was beautiful. Um, the country that I would like to go to, that I have so many, so many.
Choose one.
Uh, I want to go to Greece. I want to go to
Okay.
Greece. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
that's one of mine. It's one of mine for as well. Your favorite movie?
Ooh, oh, that's hard. Um, I'm gonna say this just because my favorite song on their soundtrack just came on yesterday for me, and it was one of my favorite childhood, and probably still now. But Tarzan, the Disney, not like the Disney animated one. That's the one. I know there's like the real ones out there, or like
Yeah,
whatever.
the Disney ones are you can't go
Yeah.
wrong with. You cannot go wrong with that. Okay, so um, if you could choose one person in history to speak with and meet, who would it be? And then
Ooh.
who would you and what would you say to them?
Oh. Um, I'm gonna say Elon Musk. And why? Because I mean, this man, I don't know how he does it, and it probably because he's one where I cannot figure out because he's very cryptic, and I love it. But he can manipulate the markets like no other just by a simple tweet on Twitter or what he says. Um, what I would say to him or ask him, I don't know if I would say it, I would, hi, but ask him. Um, what really like what is his or what was his typical routine um when before he became CEO of Tesla and everything, like what I guess what did he do on a day-to-day basis in order to gain the respect and the position that he has now. And probably I would specify that before he went and worked with PayPal, because he was working with the PayPal before they got bought out or something like that. So what did he do? And what would he suggest or advice wise on how to get to where he got before PayPal?
Okay, this sounds like a crazy one here. How about this? If you could be one superhero, who would that be?
Oh my god. Really? Uh hmm. So oh wait. I'd probably would. So Incredibles. The sister, Violet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she has like force fields, and she can like go invisible. So like, I would do that so that I can go anywhere I want without having to be bothered or anything, or if I force field. So yeah.
Okay, so here goes the last few. Here we go. Um, what is the one exercise that you hated in soccer more than any other?
Exercise. Well, fun fact, I hate running. So any conditioning whole entire workout, I just dreaded the whole entire day before we did it. But the specific exercise, burpees. Don't like
Yeah.
burpees. I hate burpees.
And then here is the last one. And I have one, but it's work related, but this is
Okay.
one. What do you want to be remembered for when you're no longer in this earth? We're all here such a short time, and when someone says Arielle Fernandez, what do you want to be remembered for?
I would love to be remembered for making a difference in the mass population, like of their lives, whether that's healthcare, whether that's on the financial level. Really, I want to use my skills in the financial markets and accumulating capital and such to put forth to a bigger humanitarian project, healthcare related. So um, once I get that up, then I can become an investor, giving back or um, opening up clinics myself. But fixing some of the gaps and the disparities that we have as a nation in the U.S. Healthcare. So uh, that can go from homelessness, that can go to increasing the awareness of preventative care, increasing the awareness to mental health. So if I can, put my name on, you know, something of that nature, whether that's a chain of homeless shelters that are specifically specified for mental health individuals or ER individuals, homeless people. I would love to do that. I would love to just give back, whether that's my corporation or whether that's an investment or an investor position, something along those lines. But
Well,
yeah.
I have to tell you, thank you so much for being here. Such an inspiring story. You've been through so much, and you're just one of the strongest people I know, and just always smiling, always happy, and you have such good energy. And how would anyone, if they wanted to get a hold of you for your services, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Can they get a hold of you via Instagram or LinkedIn, or what's the best way to get a hold of if they wanted to use your services?
Yeah, well, for the people who, first off, thank you for having me. You know, Martine, this is fun actually. Yeah, I don't usually do this for too many people, but of course for you, I do anything because you're just amazing. I remember when we met, it was crazy. Weren't we even like, what were we doing?
I have no
You were,
idea.
yeah,
I probably run around USC as usual,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
have to
I
I
think
have
you were the new kid on the block, and I was like trying to
yes,
include you on everything.
yeah.
But yeah, you can reach me by my Instagram. My first name, Arielle, underscore Sarah, Sarah 562. For the people who don't use social media, my email is bullishvisionsllc@gmail.com. So you can email me, shoot me a whatever if you're interested in learning how to trade. If you're interested on learning a little bit more about my background or whatnot, if you need advice of anything that you think that I could help you with, I would love to help you with it. But yeah,
Thank you so much, and thank you so much, everyone, for our listeners for listening to our another wonderful guest. And I'm so happy to have you here, Ariel. And join us for our next podcast and the next great guest. In the meantime, keep learning. If you like the podcast, give us a thumbs up. Until next time, thank you very much. Take care.
thank you.